Howdy, y'all, and welcome to the EEARSS Podcast, produced by Terrier TV here at Titusville High School. I am Frank Robb. That is Bill Curtis. We are wishing Cindy the most amazing time ever and missing her yet again.
Yes, we are.
Man, so we just had a last week / 5 minutes ago, we had an amazing podcast. And this whole year, we have got this. We're starting off season 4 with some pretty epic guests.
A lot of wildlife experts, a lot of people really knowledgeable in their field.
Uncle Bill always told me the word expert was someone was a used to be and like just a little bit of water. So he's like maybe use specialist. That's what Uncle Bill used to always tell me.
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
But I dare to say these people we've had on are so far above even that. I'm not even sure what's the next word up from specialist. I don't even know.
I think the whole teacher.
Yeah,
because you teach.
Professor. Yeah, professor.
Yeah, because you teach to people what you know, what you've spent your life gathering that information.
No doubt about it. Yeah, I think you're spot on there.
Yeah.
So today's guest is pretty epic too. You ready to get on
Yes,
the conversation?
Sir, I am ready.
So today on the podcast, we are joined by Professor Grahame Webb. Thank you so much, Grahame, for being here and chatting with us.
It's my pleasure indeed.
So the first time me and you had a conversation, I'm going to go back and pull this one out of my hat here for a second. It was 2017. I had reached out to you because I had just finished my biomedical degree, and I'd been working with alligators for a living my entire life. And I was looking to you because you have been the guy in charge of the Crocodile Specialist Group and literally the guy forever. I'm like, if I can get an opportunity to have a conversation with Grahame and maybe pick his brain about what I do next, where do I go, what do I do? And I reached out to you. You, just like today, woke up super early to have a conversation with me because, yet again, I always forget it's 13 and a half hours different over there. And you told me, look, we're having a Crocodile Specialist Group meeting in Argentina in 2018. Get yourself a plane ticket, come there, meet everybody, see what they're doing, learn about what kind of projects they have going on, and it'll change everything for you. You'll meet people that'll help you make connections, and it'll change your path. And that one conversation with you, which I'm not sure if you even remember that or not, it changed my entire career path. I have been able to start this nonprofit since then. We're doing incredible research with several universities across the United States over here with alligators. I've had opportunities and doors opened that were never there before due to that one conversation with you. So thank you very much for your mentorship. Whether or not you remember that or not, I really, really appreciate that.
No, I remember the meeting of you in Argentina where we talked. But that's just so many people, I think, end up in your situation that they want to go somewhere, but it's just hard to get a door open sometimes to allow you to go through, and I guess throughout my career I've tried to do that type of thing with people all over the place. I often even hear people come and work here, and I always say it's like a stepping stone to get them started and for them to be able to get experience, because it's hard today.
It really is.
It's hard today you sort of need the experience to get the job and to find a job that's satisfying, but it's hard to get in the door to get an experience. And if you do, you only get into one place and you only learn one thing. So I think getting experience is the key thing for younger people. Just crave experience. Get as much experience as you can. I used to go on any trip anywhere when I was a student. It just didn't matter. One time I said, yep, I'll go on this expedition to some island, and I thought it was up in the Barrier Reef, and I was thinking, oh, that'd be great. And when I got selected, it ended up being with the Antarctic Division. It was down working on seals and penguins. But it didn't worry me as long as I could get the experience. And all those experiences from traveling all over the place and hooking on to any expedition I could get on or anything, all came to bear fruit later on because it gave me a whole range of different skills that a lot of other people don't get. If that makes sense.
No, it really does. And that's one of the things I've always appreciated about you and knowing you. You have a broad spectrum of experience in dealing with all types of wildlife, not just crocodilians. But what I'm really interested in, and it's a credit to you, man. Okay, so I know you've won a lot of very prestigious awards and been giving a lot of prestigious awards. Young Grahame Webb, what did you know early on that you wanted to go into wildlife conservation, or did this something that kind of just evolved along the way? Tell us a little bit about that.
I think it evolved along the way. Like, I was born in Sydney, and my dad was a returned soldier, and it was a sad time, because both his brothers had been killed, and everyone was trying to work to get jobs after the Second World War. And we were living in Sydney. We were living right next to a big park called Centennial Park. And there used to be ducks and stuff there. And I was always interested in the animals. It was just, but I never thought I'd do anything with it. And then we went out to the country, and they sold up everything and started farming out in central New South Wales with wheat and sheep. And that to me was a great thing. I thought it was terrific. Everyone used to be hunters then. Even the kids all had air guns, and that's I guess where my interest got sparked. And then I went to university to do finish schooling and went to university to do agriculture. But then I found out that you could actually do zoology and work with wildlife as a job. Like, I had no idea you could do that. And once I got into that, I thought, well, God, this is for me, and research really interests me. I'm just a natural researcher. I think I bury into things and try to work out why something's happening. I like that type of frontier thinking. And I guess it went from strength to strength. And at university in those days, in the 60s, reptiles had been left behind relative to birds and mammals. But there was an American guy, Hal Heatwall, who had a job at the university. In those days, the university was very formal. You had to wear your gown to every lecture with 3 little bars as to what year you were in. And you always spoke very properly and respectfully to any lecturers or anything. Well, he was he was just such a different character. He was just out there, and he was out in the field all the time, and so he was really a key mentor. And another guy was there, a very conservative man, and he got me involved in a lot of things, especially in anatomy. And so I did a lot of work with anatomy, especially of the heart of reptiles. And between that pair, that equipped me to do a whole lot of things. And then a job opened up here on crocodiles. And I came up not thinking I'd stay with crocodiles, but I'd already worked out that to work on crocodiles seriously, from a science point of view, you really need big logistics. It's not something you can do with a canoe and a pair of binoculars and, out on your own. You need people, you need boats, you need vehicles, and you need resources. And this program had the resources. And so that was 1973, May. And I thought, well, right, I'll work on crocodiles for a couple of years, because there'd been very little science done on crocodiles right throughout the hunting period, which started after the war. And by 1971, there were hardly any crocs left up here. They were protected then. And it was a matter of if they could recover, would they recover? And so I started full-time work on crocs. And a lot of that work was done out in Arnhem Land. It's a very big Aboriginal reserve, and a lot of the Aboriginal people out there are still very traditional. You know, they're traditional hunter-gatherers. They've lived here in northern Australia for 65,000 years without any agriculture, hunter-gatherers, amazing people. Very few could speak English very well in those days. But as a biologist, you were enchanted by their skills. Their skills are just unbelievable. And so I guess after a few years, I was really publishing a lot of papers, and I was becoming there weren't that many people worldwide working on crocs in those days. There was Ted Joannan's group working in Louisiana, and John Hutton was working in Zimbabwe, and us in Northern Australia, and that was about it. There weren't a lot of people involved. And at that time, crocodiles started to become more globally important, you know, the conservation and management and sustainable use of crocodiles. And so I sort of couldn't get away from it from then on. So I've ended up working on crocodiles for over 50 years. I've worked on a lot of other stuff, but they were the things that got me started. You know, I guess it took me, once you start to get expert at something, it's pretty hard to get away from it, to be quite honest. Like it's a wonderful thing to be up, you know, to be broadly knowledgeable about something, not just knowledgeable about one little part of something, you know, to be knowledgeable about, like I worked on just all sorts of things, anatomy and physiology and ecology and management and populations, and very few other people had done that. So that's really the story. And when I was up here, there was no university up here in Darwin. Darwin's a very isolated place. It's closer to Singapore than it is to Sydney, and the whole of the Northern Territory is, I don't know how you say it in acres, is 1.3 million square kilometres, but there's only 240,000 people. So it's a very remote area, and really interesting area in some places, and I really like that. I like it's a frontier sort of area. It's a bit like Alaska, I suppose. Only it's real hot, and it's tropical, and you have complete wet seasons and complete dry seasons. Like the amount of rain we've got from June through to now September is less than 1 millimetre, but come November, December, January, February, we'll probably get 12 inches of rain a month. You know,
Wow.
it's a complete different. So everything floods, and there's water everywhere. Everything's breeding and growing and moving, and then it goes into a complete dry season where everything's hanging on waiting for the next wet season. It's a bit like the Llanos in Venezuela and Colombia, and the Pantanal in Brazil. That's the exact same sort of wet, dry tropics. And so I like it. You know, look at 30% of the population up here are Aboriginal people, and it's, you know, when I go to Sydney, I feel a bit. I travel a lot, and I have travelled a lot to countries all around the world working on different things, but there's something about Darwin that it's just, for me, it makes me feel comfortable.
So I've had the honor of listening to you speak a few times, and one of the things that always enamors me whenever you speak to a broad audience is you talk about conservation, and you were the first person that I ever heard, I think, mention conservation as a cube, and how there's multiple sides to it, and with any species, there's multiple sides to it, and it's more than just, hey, let's keep all these animals safe, and it's talking about engaging communities, talking about if you can actually have sustainable use of the animal, how important that is to a community. Can you tell us a little bit about your view on conservation in general?
Yeah. Look, when in the 60s, when I was at university, the word conservation, as far as wildlife, started to be used, and I didn't know what they were talking about. I thought, what's carrying on here? And then suddenly they, start saying, oh, everything was getting endangered, but a lot of it was not correct, and it was just obviously wrong. And so I was a little bit skeptical of this huge economy that's now built over saving wildlife, even if it doesn't need saving. There are genuine problems with some species, but the whole economy that's developed over conservation is a bit of a double-edged sword, because there's advantages in making out something. Like, if you want to work on a species and you can work out how to get it classified as endangered, well, there's more money available to work on it. Whereas if it's not and in fact, if your work recovers the population, you don't tell anybody, because if it's not endangered, the money dries up. So it's a very complex economic problem. But I was genuinely, we had a really seriously depleted population. These saltwater crocodiles are very big, right? They get to 16, 17, 18, 90, 20 feet, and they're serious predators. Like in Darwin, if you wanted to commit suicide, you just go out to the Adelaide River next to Darwin and start swimming, and you'd be killed. You'd be killed. The only question would be if it's going to take 5 minutes or 10 minutes. I don't think you'd ever get to 15 minutes. So they're a serious predator, but they're also a valuable animal in terms of the saltwater crocodile has the best skin for crocodile skin products. They've got a lot of scales and everyone wants it. So they were valuable, but they're a dangerous animal. So in the early days, what had happened is nobody cared. Like, they were predators, and if you could get paid to wipe them out, that was even more attractive. But after the 1970s, people were worried genuinely that the populations had been reduced so much that you might lose them altogether. So I guess my role was to try to promote that recovery, and while I was studying them, to do everything I could to build the populations up. But by the end of this 1970s, there hadn't been a person lost to crocodile attacks through the 1960s or the 1970s, because there were no crocodiles left. Suddenly, 79, 80, we had 2 people killed, 2 people badly mauled, and one big crocodile started tipping over tourist boats with fishermen in it, tourists, right at the time when the Territory was trying to promote tourists. So the end result was that crocodiles became persona non grata. And so you had this problem you have with predators, that you conserve them when their populations are depleted. But if their populations recover, if your conservation efforts are successful, and you admit it, then the populations rebuild and they start eating people, then people want to cut the populations down again. So you've got to be very frank and very honest. If your population recovers, you've got to admit it, and then you've got to change the approach from a pure protection approach to an approach that gives people benefits from the conservation. So that's where sustainable use comes in, because you can use these populations, like the alligator situation in Louisiana and Texas is all well managed, in Florida, and that's what they're doing. The population's now recovered. They're nowhere near as dangerous as saltwater crocodiles, but they're using the population over and over and over again. They're generating income from it. People have jobs from it. So people now have a real commercial interest in conserving crocodiles and making sure you keep crocodiles, even if they don't like them. Conservation of a predator can't be restricted to the little group of people that, sit at home having their breakfast cereal saying, "Oh, I love crocodiles." That's never going to work. You've got to have crocodiles have got to be of value to the people who live with them and the people who have the ability, legally or illegally, to look after them or destroy them. So that's what we did, and what I can tell you is that our population of these very serious predators has recovered completely. It's back to the numbers that were here, as far as we can tell, in the 1940s, and it's a raging success story. It generates income through farming and ranching, collecting wild eggs, and it's just a real win-win situation. You very rarely see that with big predators. You very rarely see crocodiles brought back over the whole historic range, and that's what we've done here. And so I've been, I guess, riding on the back of that a little bit, because there's always, every time there is an attack, which doesn't happen very often, some politician will have a knee-jerk reaction. Right, we've got to cull all the crocodiles. And then I've got to say, well, what's that going to achieve? And argue to keep them on. But and I guess it's that experience of doing all that ended me up trying to help other people in other countries with other species of crocs to get the appropriate management for that local situation. There's not one silver bullet that you can apply to all crocs in all countries, to all people. There's not. You've got to tailor a program, ideally, so there's benefits to the people from conservation. The more benefits, the more people will be interested in conservation. You can't do it all with a big stick. That doesn't work. That you can't. Like you see a lot of that. Now I know you see a lot in the US, where you see it here too, of course, where people, largely in the cities, start telling rural people, that they're, unenlightened or something.
Oh,
Yeah,
Lord.
you know what I mean.
Yes, sir.
You
Yeah,
know
for
what I
sure.
mean.
No, I know,
Yeah.
so thinking about where you started off with your research and working with crocodiles, and then moving your way up to the person who was in charge of the Crocodile Specialist Group for a very long time, it's got to be very humbling to you to see all these groups all these people around the world who have taken crocodile research and went all these incredible directions with it, finding new species, traveling to countries and areas where maybe we didn't realize there was a new species, finding these things, doing genetics, and again, human research where you're looking at heavy metals and toxins. It's got to be very humbling to you to see where things have traveled over the last 50 years of you doing it.
No, look, it is indeed, and I guess. But I often think people don't know their own capabilities. When I must have been nearly 30, I used to think that everybody was basically equally clever and equally smart, and it all depended on how hard you worked. And I was one of those people that had to work really hard. I loved what I was doing, so it didn't worry me working 14 hours a day, 7 days a week, because I just loved every bit of it. And then, eventually I did meet someone who worked very hard, but was as thick as two planks. So I had to change my thinking a bit. But I do think that the big determinant on how you go in life is being prepared to really enjoy what you're doing and get stuck into it and work hard and just break new barriers down just by sheer determination. Like people can do all sorts of things they dream about or they think they'd like to do if they really make it happen. You're not going to be able to do it economically. You've got to be prepared to say, "Oh, I'll work for nothing just for the experience." But eventually, you get experience, and you become someone that people need, and then you can talk about, well, let's start talking about salary or something. You can't, if you start off from the very start being economically rational and, getting your whole life organised so you've got a certain amount of money coming in the envelope every week and you've got your insurance policies, and that's great, but I think you tend to be stuck in a bit of a rut. That would be my advice to younger people: is be bold. If you get a chance to do something in Alaska, well, just go there and do it. Just for a couple of weeks or a month or anything that gives you experience. Get to other countries. The US is a wonderful place, but it is only one country and one culture. And the rest of the world and the people in it are fantastic. And being humble, I think, is very important. Like, I think one of the best explanations of science is that scientists should strive to be infallible without claiming to be. In other words, they should strive to get the truth, but be humble without big noting themselves. Whereas a lot of people today are claiming to be infallible without striving to be, because they're in a lot of ways they're chasing money and resources more than the science itself. But to pursue knowledge is and be at the frontier. The frontier of knowledge, where nobody knows anything else more, is a lonely place, because you're on the edge of a cliff. There's no one there holding your hand, because you're the one right out on the edge. But it's an exciting place, and each time you find something else out, you advance out a little bit further. I don't know whether that makes sense to you, but it makes sense to me.
Yeah, it makes complete sense, Graham, without a doubt. So I just again, I want to say thank you to you for the impact you've had on my life. That, I kid you not, one of the questions you asked me when me and you chatted the first time, and I'm sure you've had these mentorship discussions with more people than you can probably remember. You said, Frank, okay, I understand you got your degree. I understand you want to get further into the crocodilian world and work with things. Where do you see yourself at in the next 10 years? Where do you see this transitioning to? Where do you see it at in 5 years or 10 years? And I remember saying, Graham, I don't know. I know what I'd like to do, but I don't know how to get there. I have no idea how to get from here to there. And that conversation with you, again, I can't tell you what a difference that made in everything for me.
That's nice to know. That's nice to know, because I often say that to people, because it's hard. When I was young, if you'd have said, what do I want to do in 10 years' time, I don't know what I'd have said, because when you're younger, some people can plan their life out, but a lot of people can't, and yet it's important for people to think that question out. It's really hard, and you're in an area where with younger people that are learning and trying to find their pathway through it. But it is important to people should have much more confidence in themselves. Often at school, school's a funny environment. There's some people don't do so well at school, and they may think that they're not as gifted as other people, but that's not the big determinant. The big determinant is whether you're going to really get stuck into something. That's what makes a difference. If you find something that you're passionate about and just push the boundaries.
Yeah, you got to find your niche and jump into it without a doubt. Once you find that spot where you fit, it's a beautiful thing. And like you were saying too, it is very nice to be known as the guy. Like, you know what? Hey, this is the guy. Mm-hmm. This is the bird guy. This is the crocodile guy. This is the person. When something happens, that's the guy we're calling. That's the guy that's going to take care of it. He knows what's happening.
And
Let's reach out to him.
That's a good goal anyway, to be the go-to person with some problem, because life is about solving problems. We anatomically and physiologically, our body's solving problems 100 times every minute. We're problem solvers. That's what separates us in the animal world, really, that we can solve immensely complex problems by thinking about it. You've got to be prepared to put the time into thinking too. That agonising over, going to bed thinking, how can that work? How can that work? And you've got to be your own worst critic. You've got to tear your own ideas apart and not just grab the first thing that comes into your head and be, have a dogma. You've got to. Thinking is the greatest thing. What I mean, if you think about any problem hard enough and long enough, you'll work out how to solve it better, and how to solve it in a more cost-effective way. If you just pick up the internet and find out who can solve your problem for you, you don't become a problem solver. So the other thing that I really think it lacks at school often is in really teaching people to solve problems, because it doesn't matter what the problem is. It's the same logical approach you can use to solve most problems and become a problem solver, not a problem wallower. So many people, you think that's bad news? Let me tell you what happened to people revel in bad news, but what we need to do is solve problems, not wallow in them.
You're spot on. You're spot on.
Yep.
Grahame, I just want to again say thank you for taking the time. Your knowledge and experience is truly unmatched in this world of wildlife, pretty much anything. So I can't tell you thank you enough. Really appreciate your time.
Okay. Look, it's a real pleasure to talk to you.
And I'm just to let the audience here know. Yesterday, I was in the middle of coaching a football game. So we had set up this interview. You're 13 and a half hours different than we are. So I set up this interview. I tell Grahame, I'm like, hey, Grahame, I'm going to call you at 5 o'clock Eastern time. So on Friday, and yesterday, it's Thursday here. I'm at a football game in Vero Beach, like an hour and a half south of where we live here, where we're doing the podcast. And Grahame calls me, and I'm like, oh man, maybe he just wanted to catch up about what's going to go on tomorrow. And I had to answer the phone and be like, Grahame, I'm in the middle of a football game. I'm sorry, I got to hang up. I'll call you back. Not realizing that it is
the
Friday.
International Dateline is an amazing thing.
I was so embarrassed.
No, it's not a problem. But the funny thing was that I tend to work late or go to bed late and get up late now. And so for me, getting up early in the morning is a bit unusual. So I'd gone to bed. Do you think I could sleep properly? I kept waking up thinking, oh, is the alarm gone? Is the alarm gone? I must have woken up 10 times. So when I got up,
Lord.
I was thinking, it's not a problem. It's not a problem at all. It's just.
So then you're panicking. You think you missed it.
It does happen. Like we are like 12 hours from the US, 12 hours from Europe. So whenever it's often difficult to connect in to get the timing right. But this is fine. It's not a problem at all.
Well, I appreciate you, sir, and thank you again so much for your time. I really hope we can catch up here again soon, and I just look forward to the next opportunity to see you.
Okay, amigo. Okay, Bill, thank you.
All right, sir. Have a great evening. We'll talk to you again soon, Grahame. Thank you.
Oh, well, it's morning here.
Oh, yes, sir. Have a great morning. Have a great morning, sir. Yes, sir. We just talked about this, and I still get it wrong. Thank you, sir. We'll catch up soon.
Yeah, I got to get in and watch one of my grandchildren play basketball.
There you go. Okay. Well, God bless you, buddy. Have a great day, and we'll catch up soon. Bye. Maybe the most interesting man in the world.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
It's another one of those people, just like Matt, just like Jessica, just like Hannes, that we've had on so far. You could literally sit there and talk to them all day,
right?
And just have the most interesting conversation ever. And
I like how he was talking about going for it and doing, like internships. Just take whatever learn, get out in the field, learn whatever you can, travel whenever you can, and it'll work out. You'll have knowledge, you'll gain that knowledge, and then people will want that knowledge.
the experience from being able to travel somewhere international and actually go there and work and do things, there's nothing else like it. Remember the first time I traveled internationally and went and did some work somewhere. Remember my cousin always saying, my cousin Billy, who lives in Hungary, he's like, you're going to have the fish out of water filling. And I said, the fish out of water filling? He's like, oh, you're going to feel totally lost.
Right.
Embrace it. Whenever you get to the point where you can embrace it, you'll start enjoying yourself, and it'll change your whole perspective of what's going on. And I got in one of those situations. I did not speak the language of the country. I didn't know what was going on. I was by myself, and I was freaking out a little bit, and I went, you know what? I'm all right. I'm going to figure it out.
Right.
I'm going to figure it out. It's okay. And as soon as I did that, the perspective flipped, and you start really soaking up what's going on and enjoying it for what it is, and everything changes. That's it for me now, being able to be a mentor. You know, I know you've got this a lot over the years being a teacher. You were a mentor to me. Being a teacher, you guys have a different perspective on things because it's your daily gig is to pour your heart and soul out to the kids that are in the classroom with you. You know, there's a lot of people that don't understand that, but you guys are pouring your soul out to the kids that are in there, trying to show them a way to improve themselves and make themselves better. Now that I'm able to do that with interns of my own, that is so rewarding. That's what, to me, that's what coaching has always been about, being able to share that time with the kids and talk more about than the sport, just kind of try to be a positive influence in their life and share that. And it's now that I have my own interns, you know, we've had Rebecca on here.
Right. Yeah.
It's a very special thing to be able to show them other countries, be able to share the combined 60 years experience of my family working with these animals. I'm basically downloading it into her and being, here you go. Here's my knowledge base. Take all these files. Let's see if you can figure it out. You know, it's I don't know. It's
called opportunity.
Yeah, it's very neat to be able to provide that opportunity for others. And yeah, I think it's time for me to digress.
Yep.
I haven't digressed this season, I don't think, so it's about time. All right, guys, thank you for tuning in to the EEARSS Podcast, produced here at Terrier TV at Titusville High School. If you're interested in sponsoring our program, you can go over to EEARSS.org or that same address, EEARSS.org@gmail.com. We are also at alligatorrob.com. It's the same place. Don't tell anybody. It's a secret. It's not a secret. Thank you for tuning in. We really appreciate you all being here, and we'll catch you all next week. Bye-bye.